If you keep
Yeah.
dollars in your bank account for long enough, they go to zero. It's crazy. How's that a thing?
Inflation in general in a capitalistic society is a feature. It's not a bug. Too much of it is a problem. Too little of it is a problem. But inflation is a feature. You're growing the pie so that more people can win and more people have a chance at
Yeah.
opportunity to grow.
A startup is somebody who decided not to play by the rules. They decided to go out and break all the rules. And if they do it right, they get to be the most successful people in the game.
If you're not lazy, if you can be disciplined, if you can delay gratification, everything is possible. The human condition is to constantly create and build and work. We're a cockroach in that sense. We can't sit still.
Yeah, I think the clarity around policy, around tariffs, and sort of Trump's, I guess, bias towards growth and towards rest regulation, that to me is the most exciting thing about the next 4 years, is that combination feels like jet fuel. It poured on top of an AI, robotics, automation disruption force that's about to come through. It's like you already have a extremely strong forcing function towards efficiency and growth, and then when you layer that on top of that, yeah, given assuming that Trump will bring a level of competency to government that we haven't had in decades or even potentially a century, I think that is what's so freaking exciting about in 6 days or whenever this drops, 3 days, whenever. That's
I
what's
mean,
got me super hyped up.
I think I think he did last time he was in office, and I think he's already been doing it. I mean, perfect example. You see that Hamas and Israel are talking about
Yeah,
like
they agreed. They agreed to terms.
oh, they did
Preliminary
already?
draft. Yeah, there's an agreement to a draft.
And
Yeah.
what was Trump saying? Like, make sure it's done before I get in office. Make sure it's done before I get inauguration. Otherwise, hell like you've never seen. Like, he's not messing around,
Yeah.
and that's what you need. Versus his previous administration, don't, don't.
Yeah.
It's like not like no like just I hate to say it, and I know this can make me sound like a misogynist or whatever. And I'm not saying a woman
Uh-oh.
can't be in that same spot.
Demonetized. There we go.
Really? Mm.
Banned.
Like like a Tulsi Gabbard, she could fit the bill. But all I'm saying is, like, it takes a certain type of woman, not and it takes a certain kind of guy. Joe Biden wasn't the right type of guy, but it takes somebody with a certain "don't fuck with me" attitude. I don't know how else to say
Yeah,
it. Like, it's like, don't like, I will rip your face off. Like,
I
you
agree.
want someone to be staying up there that's, you know, has the calmness of an MMA fighter where they just have to be like, "Listen, man, walk away. Walk away.
The best
Don't
I think the word is
yeah, help me
ruthless.
out." Yeah,
Ruthless. Yeah,
just like
I think
yeah,
if you look at great leaders anywhere, the ones that are the best, and I'm not talking about the nicest or the kindest or the ones that you wanna be friends with or the ones that treat people the way they should be treated all the time. I'm talking about
yeah,
people that the civilization benefits from the most. Usually those leaders are ruthless, meaning
yeah.
that they know what's the right thing to do, and then they are uncompromising when it comes to executing against that right thing to do, and being able to and then the ones that are really really great are the ones that can identify the right thing to do at a very high rate, right?
Yeah.
That's like your Elon Musk, your Steve Jobs, your Jensen Huangs, your
Glenn
all these
Shotwell.
different leaders. Yeah, Gwen Shotwell, exactly.
But
Um,
that's a perfect example, and
yeah,
which is why I say, like, it doesn't have to be a man, and I'm gonna sound like
right.
a misogynist for saying this, but it tends to be men, because even the examples you're giving, there's only a handful of women you can talk about that.
That we
It's just
know of.
it's but it's just not a on a bell curve, you do not see women tend to have those type of personality traits. The same
Yeah,
way you
that's
don't
fair.
see men tend to have high levels of empathy and compassion and all that, right? We suck at those things. Women rock at those things.
Yeah,
We're great at being assholes and wanting to go and punch each other in the face, like, "Hey, wanna go grab a beer now?" Like, most women aren't great at that, right? Like, there's a there's a reason there's 2 of us, and there's a reason we fit so well together, and it's
yeah.
because
We
we
complement
balance
each
each other
other's
out.
weaknesses. Yeah,
Exactly. Like,
yeah,
there like, whether you believe in God or not, like, this isn't an accident. Like, this works in harmony for a reason, and that's why. And so I just think you needed someone like him. And again, not all guys. Like I said, like Biden was awful at it. He sucked at it.
Can you
You
believe
know,
he was running for re-election?
I
Dude, I think back to that time and I'm like, I cannot fucking believe this guy was actually actively running for re-election.
I want to know
How
who was actually running. It was his wife. It was Jill. Like it wasn't him.
it wasn't
And
him,
the
it was who
cabinet.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
and the
I
cabinet.
think whoever happened to be closest to the stamp at the moment,
Yeah.
like, that was it.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah, just, never underestimate how far a senile person can go.
Well, yeah. It's now
Yeah.
that's what I want. I want the Biden files or the Biden administration files. Like what was happening there? Like because it clearly. I want to know how everything actually played out whenever they didn't even have a little mini primary.
I
Like I
bet you
want
their record keeping is so bad and they were so fucking dysfunctional that you won't even be able to get a good Biden files because of how disheveled and disorganized that whole thing was. I'm
you
being
know
facetious here, but yeah.
part of me. You mentioned Mark Zuckerberg earlier, Hans, on Joe Rogan. I've like mixed feelings about it. Like I love to see that ever since he started working out and doing jujitsu, his testosterone levels have gone up, and he's become a man, and he's kind of shed his softness. And he's been I mean, it's true, like, there's no other way of saying it. The more you work out, the higher your test goes. It's a fact. But he surrounded himself around people who thought differently, and he's been able to, like, speak up. Like, I think part of it is, like, he was too scared to speak up before, and I love the way he came on Joe Rogan. I like a lot of things he said, but part of me is also like, "Yeah, it's easy to have a voice now," you know?
Yeah.
But when it was inconvenient to have a voice, like what Elon did was brave. That was brave. What the Spotify CEO did during COVID to platform Joe Rogan, say, "No, we're not gonna take him off," that was brave.
Brian Armstrong with Coinbase.
Exactly. What Mark Zuckerberg did was, all right, good. Like, you need more of that. You see this across the board. You see all this, like, DEI stuff going away and all this, and it's like moving back towards meritocracy, not caring about someone's, if they're male or female, not caring if someone's black, white, Indian, Hispanic, doesn't matter. Like, I just want the freaking best. End of story. I don't give a F, right? I'm trying to win, and I can only win with the best. And the best looks a lot different depending on the needs. But the other thing that I didn't like about that interview, which I felt like he kinda lied to us about, was when Joe asked him, he's like he said, like, the White House was calling up and yelling at them, whatever, constantly, and Joe Rogan said, "Do you have any of those phone calls recorded?" And he said, "No, we don't have any." I'm like, "Man, either 1, that's not what happened, because maybe if they did it once, you didn't record it. If it happened a second time, you're freaking Facebook. You have all these servers. You're constantly recording, monitoring everything. Like, don't tell me it's not recorded. BS. Like, I don't believe this for 1 second. Like,
Hmm.
there's no way. So either it didn't happen or you actually did record it, but you're not showing us for some reason.
You don't trust him. You don't trust the Zuckster.
How can you?
Yeah, I definitely don't trust him still.
How,
Like, you know, he hasn't been willing to sacrifice for principles yet. He has talked about what the right principles to have should be, but when it comes to, you know, being under fire and sticking to your guns, we haven't seen that yet. And so no, like, you know, he's got to prove until we see something cost him for the principles that he claims to have, then I would say the preponderance of evidence demonstrates that he doesn't have principles that he's willing to sacrifice for other than I want Meta to keep getting bigger.
but two things, and one of them is a steel man. The first thing is you like right now, because I voted for Trump, I'll say I'm part of this new Republican Party. Um, just because I voted for I'm not party affiliated. Like I said, I voted for Obama twice, voted for Trump, like, so
You're MAGA
I'm just
adjacent.
I I like the principles of the new Republican Party, which were what I thought the principles were of the Democratic Party. No wars, less government, freedom of speech. Like, I mean, like I thought this was just basic stuff. Um, but you can't you can't do the same stuff that the left does that you don't like, which is okay. Mark Zuckerberg has th- we can say when he went on Joe Rogan, that was kind of a real 180. He did start sticking his neck out there beforehand. He started changing. He was already doing more of this MMA stuff. He intentionally didn't put political ads or whatever. He talked about what Trump did was one of the most badass things he's ever seen with the fight, fight, fight thing. Like all that happened. For, I'll give him credit for that because he was speaking out and some of that maybe was the most popular moment. But I also think, like, look, if you want people like that to change their ways and just, like, kind of, like, I don't know, get red pilled, if you will, then you also can't, like, not, like, forgive and accept back, right? I mean, I know that sounds I mean, those are basic Christian values, right? Like, you have to have forgiveness. Like, there it can't be like you forever hold this on someone's head. It's like, people make mistakes. And the steel
I
man,
think
I would say, is the steel man. You're both lying to me if you're telling me the FBI called you or the White House called you and said, "You take this shit off. You put this person down, or else." It's like, I don't know what or else means. Freaking FBI giving me a call. Like, I'd be
Mhm.
scared shitless. You talking about the freaking FBI just showed up at my door? Like, I mean, I'm just saying he's our age. Like, we're all the same age. Okay, maybe he's a little older. Oh, well, you're old, far as so he's like your age. But
We're like basically the
but
same age, aren't we? How old are you?
I'm 34.
I keep forgetting you're like
Yeah, see,
fuck you.
I'm
Go
a
ahead.
baby over
Continue.
here.
I'll allow it.
But I'm just saying, like, if the FBI came up, like, I get it. He's also the 3rd richest person in the world, but he's also far younger than any of the other guys, right? Like, the he's learning, right? Elon's gone through the fire and dealt with all this shit and had this pushback, and maybe Elon, even at that age, wouldn't have caved, but I don't know, like, I feel like you gotta have a little space for, like, dude, he's
I
learning all this on the fly. Does like,
I'm open to the fact that
there's
maybe
no
he's
playbook.
changed, and I'm willing to give him, some room to make the change. I just think forgiveness is different than trust. Like, I
I
don't
agree.
place a lot of trust in him yet
Trust is earned.
yeah, until I see, like I said, the sacrifices where he's gotta be willing to hold those principles when it hurts. But yeah, I think like I do see a lot of the things that you're talking about, and I especially can give him empathy for how young he was specifically, like, and the fact that he's, like, he trusted the media. I don't think that's a necessarily a smart thing, but, he hadn't seen enough yet, and he was busy doing other things, um, trying to build a company. You're not really necessarily paying attention to how, messed up maybe some of the dynamics in our media environment are. And so, yeah, like I think there's definitely a lot of room for him to have made those mistakes and to learn from those mistakes. But yeah, that's different than being willing to, you know, put an encrypted cloud with on the meta servers that's got a lot of sensitive information on it.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
would also oh, sorry, just real quick. I would
Go ahead.
also say that I haven't seen any other CEO step up the way he has and be very vocal. Um, I'm sure you could name a couple right now that I'm not thinking about, but in general, him at his level, his size, like I haven't seen anyone else.
Yeah.
And
I th
I think again, I give credit for that.
I think it speaks to how difficult it is to stand up for what's right. I think that's really what it comes down to. I think it says more about the leaders and the people that came forward and were willing to stick a flag in the ground regardless of what the repercussions would be for what is right versus why the people that didn't do it, like how come they're doing it now. Right? I think there is I think his like Zuck's trust will be built on his actions from this point forward, right? That like time will tell if he's being real or not because, you know, Did he cave to pressure? Obviously. Did he do the right thing in the past? Obviously not. Does he have reign over a platform that has been responsible for some shady practices in the past? Absolutely. Could those have been mistakes? Perhaps. Is he doing the right stuff now? Yes. Right? So it's like, the whole nuanced discussion I think is the correct one to have with
Well, and
Zuckerberg specifically.
especially just think about how hard it is to build like no one's he's literally the first
There's no
person
playbook.
Yeah,
to have a platform that reaches 3 billion humans on Earth.
it's
Like
unbelievable.
that is ridiculous. And so yeah, like the surface area for things that you're going to mess up when you have, almost half of the world's population touching your products on a monthly basis. Yeah, like that's insanely difficult. And so yeah, it's like it's impossible to build anything that's of that size if you are too afraid of taking risks to mess things up. Like you have to be okay with the fact that we're going to try some things. Some of them are going to be really dumb and there's going to be a lot of mistakes and we're just going to have to learn from our mistakes and fix them and move forward. And maybe even that translates also into not being sufficiently apologetic, for people when you do make mistakes. Like, oh, have you really changed? Well, you haven't really showed me. Like I can see where to do what he has done, you wouldn't necessarily be the person that people are asking you to be in this moment to prove that you have changed sufficiently. Um, and yeah, to your point, Farzad, I think that his actions moving forward will really be the test. Um, and that's how we'll decide, who he is. But it is fair for people to criticize him, I think, specifically because he has FU shares in Facebook. And so he is vested with FU power. And when the moment where we need competent, high integrity, high individuals with FU power to use it for the good of humanity, he caved. And he should feel pain, I think, from the
Yeah,
general public for failing in that, like, he has specifically been given this position in society or, been given, built up, however you wanna look at it. He's now stewards one of the most powerful positions in all of human society. And in a moment of crisis, he did fail the test and he needs to do better moving forward. Um, and so, I think hopefully he has learned some of those lessons well and will know how to step into those positions or those roles later more effectively. And I think this is, one of the reasons why he does look at Elon and Jensen and Dana. Like he looks up to these guys because they have been wildly successful. They are older, they are wiser in many ways. Um, and so hopefully he can steward that responsibility well um, in the future. And I think that the pieces are all there for him to do that. Like I think it's very possible for him to like if he were to face similar challenges next year, I think he would face them better than he has in the past. Um, so yeah, we'll just have to watch and see.
But my last point on this, and I don't want to keep having to defend Zuck here. Um, if you think about it, though, he's the only person that's come out and been this transparent as well. Like I could pick on Jensen, right? Jensen all of a sudden had Nvidia put out a post about that Biden admin's decision and what they're doing
yeah,
with the chips. Oh, conveniently, they knew it. They didn't do it before. They did it when it's a week out before the Biden administration's over. Like that's pretty weak, man. Like, you could have said something before. We've had lots of these chip acts that, block chips to China. Like, you could have said all of that before. You chose to wait until recently, a week before. And again, you see a lot of these people giving funds to the Trump, inauguration, but we don't see them coming out of, the shadows and talking. At least Zuck did that. At least he came out of the shadows and spoke and, I think gave clarity of thought on what was going on. And look, he's what the second person to be a CEO and showed this type of insight into his point of view. E This isn't normal. Elon's the only CEO in the world that we know that does this, and Elon's normalizing this. Elon has given Zuck room to do this. What does Tim Cook think? But hell, what does
We'll never
Bezos
find
think?
out.
What does uh Sasha think? I mean, like, you go on. We don't know. At
Whatever
least
HR tells them to think.
exactly. And or maybe not. Maybe they actually do have their own opinions, but like they don't share it with us, which I think is in 2025, I find it very difficult to invest in a company where the CEO isn't as forthcoming, transparent as you see Elon being. It's like, what are you hiding?
That's a
Like,
great point.
I should know what you really think. I really should.
Yeah. I do wonder, that's such an interesting point. Because it's, if you think about the three of us, like, the three of us are Tesla investors and, other investors as well. Palantir, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say, Palantir, Alex Karp has been that way
Right. Yeah.
always, forever. And yeah, I mean, there have been others, but um it at that level, like none of those companies were Mag 7.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like for for retail investors to want to buy into your company, like let's say you're a public company and you want retail investors to back you, it probably behooves you to be as transparent as possible because that is, to your point, Nick, like that's the benchmark that has been set by one of the largest public companies in the world in Tesla, which has one of the largest, if not the largest, retail investor base in the entire world. Which is like why does it have so many retail investors? It's because people can very clearly and obviously see what the hell the CEO is about. That like how many of us are invested in Tesla because of Elon, right? I would say probably like 95% of us that are left after
Absolutely.
that shit show that happened in 2021, 2022, 2023, what it weeded out all the morons, right? That were invested in
2022
the stock.
sucked.
Yeah, man. So glad that's over. But I think that's a very interesting one. So like Alex Karp, like why have I thought about investing in Palantir? Because I know it's very easy for me to see what Alex is all about because he has hours upon hours upon hours upon hours of interviews of him talking about not just about his business, but about how he thinks and his approach, right? Same thing with the Lemonade CEO. Same thing with Palmer Luckey and Anduril, right? Like, is Meta gonna start going down that path too? Like, if Zuckerberg's out there talking about all this stuff and his vision and how he thinks about the world, like, because you think about like leadership is a culmination of life experiences, like how you think about the world, your philosophy around leadership, right? It's all these intangibles that you can't put on a P&L or on a balance sheet that help people visualize what the future of the company is going to look like. It's the vision is derived from those life experiences, right? It's such an interesting point. Like if you're a company that is public and you're the CEO or the leader of it, you should probably go on Joe Rogan. You should probably
Without a doubt.
go on All
Lex
In.
Friedman.
You should probably go on Lex. You should probably come on
Yeah.
this show and help us out a
Yeah.
little bit. Get our subscriber count up, right? Like,
And
subscribe if you're watching this.
not to talk about book, but that's where I'll also give Jeff Bezos credit, right?
Yeah,
Because he's gone out there, and I think understanding how these people actually think is a big deal.
it's a populist movement through and through. Like, if
Yeah.
you really think about it, it's like the people, the masses are finally getting access, or they are able to see how the world actually operates. We've lived behind what it seems like behind closed doors for decades. I feel like this is how the world has been is like, you have 7 or 8 power structures that hoard all the knowledge and power. And for you to be able to capitalize on this world, you have to know somebody to get in behind the doors, and then you're gatekept out of those doors. Whereas in the age of the internet and social media and podcasts, those doors are now wide open, or there are people out there that are willing to open the doors for you to speak into the world behind closed doors and then make decisions based on what they're giving you. And I think like Elon is the perfect example of this. Elon is the ultimate, here's how it works. Like, here's what's going on. Like the guys at the All In podcast, right? The guys, they live in behind closed doors but they're transparent enough to open it as much as they want to, and I can, I guess, from a legal perspective, for other people to see in,
I
for the masses to see in, right?
I think the All In podcast is one of the most brilliant things to have ever been done
Yeah.
because I mean,
The insight is unbelievable, like, the
it's
unspoken insight that
intoxicating.
you get. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It's intoxicating. It's you know what it is? It's the I'm gonna sound so freaking corny here, but it's the American dream because you see these guys who have made it,
It's
who
true.
aren't just lucky guys. I mean, they're like all
Yeah,
immigrants,
every single one of them is self-made.
yeah, self-made, and you're listening to them like they're not much older than us, and they've made it. They're successful. They talk about enjoying their wealth. They're not ashamed of their wealth.
Yeah.
But they're also not like maybe Chamath a little bit at times with the sweaters, but they're not necessarily douchey about it. But like, look, they're on another level. So like, they talk about things that are on another level. Like they talk about certain wines and certain brands, whatever that they wear. But like in general, like we get to see behind the closed doors that we would never get to see. And, Elon gives us a lot of that, I think, with Tesla. Not necessarily on his interviews, but like when he tweets and stuff or posts.
I
Um,
think his X purchase has brought in that scope by 1,000 because it's like
oh,
we
yeah.
actually get to see politics, like the power struggle, media. That to me
Yeah.
has been 1,000 times more like that. Like his X purchase to me, what is the most valuable thing I've gotten from it is like truly understanding how the world works.
Yeah.
Like really, really understanding how the
Yeah.
power structures control everything.
He's going to
Yeah.
corners with a flashlight and just shining it
Yeah.
and like showing us
And
what's
everyone's like,
going
oh my
on.
God, what the fuck is that?
Yeah. All right. Hey. Go ahead, Hans.
I just wanna, shout out one more person real quick who's kind of an OG in this area, and that's Warren Buffett, like, his letters and, like, his
True.
while it was a little bit different era and it wasn't easy to just, like, mass distribute everything, even the shareholder meetings, a lot of times got recorded and people could watch those, so,
That's a good point.
he was really transparent and shared a lot of information, a lot of wisdom, knowledge, him and Munger both. And I think that, and I'm sure if you go back before then, well, then there's a whole nother, group of people who did the same thing. But it is a cool trend that, I love the fact that that is so accessible now with the internet that, some kid with a cell phone in Africa in the middle of a neighborhood that is absolutely, like super hard to grow up in can watch interviews with like these types of people if they want to and have their mind expanded beyond anything they've ever like their wildest dreams and imaginations as to what's possible, how the world actually works, what are the skills that they need to work on, how do they learn, how do they grow, how do they iterate, how do they transform themselves in their life and their community. So it's awesome.
Yeah.
Beautifully said.
Go ahead, bro.
Um, all right. So I think you said you had a hard stop in about 30 minutes, Farzad.
Mhm.
Um, so there's like eh, two topics I would like to kind of talk with you guys about, and I think
Yeah, let's
people
do
are
it.
gonna be upset if they didn't stay to the end, because I think this is like the
We can
episode they
always
love,
put the end at the beginning. This is the
or,
power of editing. Yeah.
or just tease them to be like, yeah,
Okay.
stick
We'll
to
see.
the
We'll see.
end. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll let your man do his thing. Um, you guys tell me which way you want to talk. I have a Bitcoin topic I'd like to talk about, and then Tesla stock. I know you guys probably.
Let's do
I don't know.
Tesla stock first and then Bitcoin.
Hans,
What do you
what's
think,
your vote?
Hans?
No, I want your
I'm
vote. I
good
want
for
I
either
want a
one.
Hans vote.
I would say Bitcoin and then
Okay,
Tesla
good.
stock. That way
Okay.
I
tease
prefer
the
Bitcoin.
people more.
I prefer the Bitcoin topic. Okay. So I believe that let me use a very simple example. I hate cottage cheese. I think it's disgusting.
How do we go from Bitcoin to cottage cheese?
You'll see. but I want to like cottage cheese because it's so high in protein.
I have a tip for you for cottage cheese, for liking cottage cheese. Can I give it to you real quick before you get
Go
into
for
your
it.
Bitcoin tirade? Okay. So this is for the people too. If you hate cottage cheese, because I hated cottage cheese uh forever, and then my wife came up with this wonderful recipe. Do you like eggs?
Of course.
Do you like omelets?
Sure. Let's say
Okay.
yes.
All right. So this is what you do. You take you make a cottage cheese omelet.
Mm,
You mix your egg and your cottage cheese. So you do about say 2 to 3 tablespoons of cottage cheese, 2 eggs. You know, you dice up your tomatoes or whatever you want to put in there for your omelet, and then you fry it. So you put it in a frying pan. You use your coconut oil, avocado oil, olive oil, whatever you want to do. But then make sure you cook all the moisture out of the cottage cheese, like get it like real nice to the point where the egg kind of gets a little fried on both sides of your omelet. You know, cook all the moisture out, and then it's the most delicious thing you'll ever have in your life. Add a little bit of
okay.
salt and pepper. Okay,
That's
go
a
ahead.
good tip. And no, I'm not
Yeah.
using any oil, Farzad. I'm using my bacon grease.
Great.
Cook the
Lard,
bacon
whatever
up
you wanna
first.
use.
Um, so I will try that because I wanna like cottage cheese because it's so dense in protein. It's just it's a nice, easy way to consume a lot of protein. Um, but I can't stand it. And it but despite the fact I can't stand it, I wanna like it. And so every year, maybe twice a year, I try it. One way or another, I try it to see, like, maybe my taste buds change. Like, maybe all of a sudden, like, "Oh, I tried it a different way." Like, this time I had it with fruit, this time I had it with some honey, like, this time I had it in a salad, or I don't know. There's all kinds of ways you can have it. I'll try yours next to see if that works. But my point is, just because I don't like it or I don't think it's good, it doesn't mean, like, I don't reevaluate my position on it. I try to go back and, like, I try to challenge my current position on the stance. And so I take that with Bitcoin. Bitcoin, I've struggled with so long because my opinion of Bitcoin is that it's eventually just going to be nothing. That there's I think I could poke a lot of holes into it. Um and that I think eventually it will be worth nothing. It'll blow up. It'll be just another bubble that eventually ends in nothing. That might be in 100 years. I don't know. It might go to $1 million of Bitcoin first. I don't know. But I think eventually that's what happens. But what I try to do, again, even with Bitcoin, is I try to challenge my point of view on this constantly. And so um, this morning, I literally decided, it's a new way I can try to steel man my own point of view. I'm gonna reach out to all of the youngest people I know who, are working professionals, make decent money, and I think would be investing. And I'm just gonna ask them all, "Hey, what do you guys think about crypto, Bitcoin, and the stock market? Like, what are your thoughts on it? Like unfiltered, whatever your opinion. Like, ignore whatever you think I would think. Like, I'm looking for what you think. And I'm trying to understand what younger demographics are thinking because all I know are the people my age and in my ecosystem. And a lot of people in my ecosystem are huge in Bitcoin, all in investors in Bitcoin. So I'm curious to hear from you guys. What are your perceptions on Bitcoin? Have they changed? Have they evolved at all? And
Interesting.
if you know anyone younger of a younger age, what are their thoughts? Because I'm trying to understand a different, not just different point of view, a whole different generation is what I'm also
Yeah.
trying to understand.
So before I go, like, what were the young people saying about Bitcoin? I'm curious to hear. What were they saying about crypto?
So it's interesting.
The youngins.
Why parse words? You know. Um,
I'm gonna write this down before I forget. Tell Dave to
let's see.
Gabby.
Okay, I'm verbatim going to say this.
You good.
Uh, my friend writes, "Howdy, Papa. None of us are really invested in it. We got really into it 3 to 4 years ago, but then nobody really stuck with it. I don't currently own any, but I could be convinced to do like 5 to 8% of my portfolio if I knew more. But yeah, most of us are just believers in the stock market."
Okay.
That was one person who was reflecting several of his buddies. And then another buddy of mine who's also younger. So that first person is probably like 24, 25. Um, he's an engineer. This other person, he's maybe 27, 28, I think, around that age. He said, "Hey man, I don't really go hard on crypto. I own some, but I don't think it's better than stocks, or at least not yet. Dot dot dot." And when he says he owns some, it's like 2 grand.
Mhm.
And then he says, seems to be more volatile than stocks as of late. Bitcoin going between 101 and 90K and floating between. I'm also just noting with my stock, doing nothing with my stock, and have almost all in on S&P 500. And then I've reached out to a few people I work with to ask their kids who are in college, but I haven't
Yeah.
heard back from them yet. So that's kind of the
Okay.
sentiment that I'm
Okay.
seeing.
So I separate crypto and Bitcoin.
I agree.
So crypto, yeah, crypto for me is like when I think of crypto, I think blockchain technology. That's what I really think about. So when you ask me the question of like, what do you think, Bitcoin or crypto is going to do long term? I separate those two, and I'm not talking about like meme coins or shit coins or any of these like offshoots of crypto that you know, we had the boom and bust cycle during COVID, right, where it was just a bunch of like garbage. It was very reminiscent of the dot com bubble from back in the day, right? So the way I think about Bitcoin specifically is I do think Bitcoin has value and it actually is something that is solving for something in the world. So there's two things that it's solving for that way I view it. Number one, if you look at countries right now in this day and age, countries that have an unstable currency or a corrupt government that's in charge of the monetary policy for the government, right? How many governments can you count in the world that have that circumstance, right?
So can I just short circuit this point real quick? Because
Yeah,
I feel like,
yeah.
are you just gonna tell me all the stuff Michael Saylor says?
Um, from my perspective, right? I think
Okay.
Bitcoin is a good protection towards corrupt government.
Okay, why
100%.
not Ethereum then? Because Ethereum can move faster, does more transactions, it's actually a better technology.
Okay. I
So
so
I
so
d
so
Ethereum
you
is
so
way
think
more
you're saying
expensive
Bitcoin,
than Bitcoin, like,
yeah,
but
to do transactions on. Ethereum
yeah.
is a more expensive chain to do transactions on than Bitcoin.
but it bec it's but Bitcoin can't do more is the reason.
What do you mean?
Bitcoin can, I forget the numbers, but Bitcoin can't even do 10x of what Ethereum can move as far as transactions.
Yeah. So is your argument that because there's gonna be a better technology out there to solve for this problem, Bitcoin's gonna go to 0? So
I think
if Bitcoin's
technologies I do think
yeah.
technology will be the reason that Bitcoin has its downfall. Um, and I think the movement of money will eventually, like, put it to you this way, movement of money, you actually have more in stable coins of movement of money than you have in Bitcoin, which is fascinating.
Mhm. But
Well, I
Bitcoin's
mean,
getting used go ahead.
you just have to get into, what are the use cases? Like Ethereum is a virtual computer, Bitcoin is whatever you think it is. Like I think it makes sense as a store of value. Um the I mean, the investment case for or not the investment case, like the use case, the practical use case for Bitcoin to me just comes down to the fact that it's the non-inflationary asset with the most network effects. And if like the real question mark is does it get adopted as a reserve asset by the United States government? If you have the largest government power using it as a reserve currency asset, then the adoption in global mind share that Bitcoin goes to is like that's a huge step change from here. Um Now does that mean like to me the only real risk for Bitcoin in any sort of like near term time frame is just security. Like as long as the core technology maintains its security, then it's going to continue to just grow like logarithmically as it has since its inception.
So, like, the network effect point is a very interesting one, right? Because it just so happens, like when I talk about, when I talk to my parents who have a lot of family in Iran, right? Or when I talk to people in other countries, right? They know people, everybody knows somebody in those countries that are leveraging Bitcoin to try and protect themselves against their government, to try to protect themselves against insane inflationary pressures from their mishandling of monetary policy, either because of, sanctions or whatever. The For them, if they were to transact in their home country's currency, they would be worse off than utilizing Bitcoin or whatever else. It just so happens that Bitcoin is the one for right now, and it has been for the last 5, 10 years or whatever, that has come to prominence because of network effects. And so the way I think about that is like the US dollar, right? Why do most countries transact in the US dollar?
Our
And
military.
why? Because of our military, right? Because we offer some sort of like thing that says, hey, our currency is backed because we can defend you. Like we
Not
can
just our
defend our
military.
currency. Yeah, we
It's
can
also
defend
if
our
you wanna do
currency.
business with us,
Yeah.
like, we are the biggest market in the world.
I
So,
think
like, that's the
Bitcoin
other part.
offers the same exact thing. So like the alternate coin or the alternate crypto, whatever you want to call it, would have to be able to steal from Bitcoin in the same way that the USD has stolen away from everybody else. It has
But
to
but
have some sort of underlying value proposition that makes the other crypto a
well, what's
better
that
thing to
value
adopt.
proposition that makes Bitcoin so good? Like, the US economy is 1,
What's the
and
value
2.
proposition that makes Facebook better than MySpace? Like, MySpace
That's my
was
point. That's my whole point. That's literally my point. I see Bitcoin as MySpace, and I think you're gonna have a Facebook, and I think you're gonna have a TikTok. Like, I think that's what's going to happen. I mean, that happens with worlds, right? You literally had that. England You had England, and then you had the United States. Before England, you had right, like, you had the Roman
Interesting.
Empire.
yeah.
Like, you have this happen.
You
So
think you think it's basically gonna get disrupted by a more economically sound, a a more, I don't know, security protected, better network effect crypto in the long term, and people will just dump it, trade it out of it for that new coin, whatever that may be. So here's my pushback to that. How come
I
that
think that's
hasn't
the
happened
risk.
yet? How come that
What?
hasn't happened in the last 15 years?
Whatever it is has to get adopted not by people, but by governments, because that's where
Right.
the real network effects
Well,
come into effect when it is, a preponderance of governments. What and I think that I don't necessarily disagree with you, Nick. Like, over a
It's an
long enough
interesting
period,
point
like,
for sure.
if you look at it over 100, 150 years, like, it's a big question, but that's what
yeah.
it would have to take.
But
Oh, I
same thing
don't think it
could
would
be said for the USD,
yeah,
right?
well, but okay, but I think that's one of the reasons why it won't happen. Wait, Bitcoin won't become the reserve currency in the United States. It will not.
Okay. But
Ge
No, I think there's a distinction there. The reserve currency, maybe not. A major
it won't be
reserve
the reserve
asset,
store of value.
almost 100%. Like, it's going to be a major reserve asset in the next 4 years, almost guaranteed.
I don't think it will. I really don't. Because if that happens, that makes, Michael Saylor the most powerful man in the world. I think the fact that they are buying so much Bitcoin defeats the point of Bitcoin. The whole point of Bitcoin is to be decentralized. But if one person, one company owns 10% of it, where's the decentralization in that?
I mean, how you can make the same argument for the US dollar? Elon Musk is the
Nope.
richest person in the world,
He
right?
doesn't own
He
10% of of it.
So what's the difference if it's 0.1% or 10%? I don't understand. I don't
It's not even
understand.
0.1%.
But like, I guess help me understand. So help me understand why. So does Michael actually own 10% of Bitcoin? He doesn't get anywhere
The goal
close
for
to that.
MicroStrategy is to hit 10% of
Okay.
Bitcoin ownership.
So you think that just that variable existing by default makes the entire premise of Bitcoin broken because
Not just
one
that.
individual, yeah,
It's the fact that I think technology could phase it out, and it's the fact that with Bitcoin, there's a fixed amount, that the pie can't keep growing. I think it's important for the pie to keep growing.
And that's where the Bitcoin people are gonna say that's the one,
I know.
like, and this is something that all the other cryptocurrencies usually do, is they have some sort of inflationary amount. And so, I mean, it really comes down to whether you're right or wrong on that one point. If the value prop is that it doesn't inflate at all, and that gives it a competitive edge, then it will continue to win in the marketplace. And if that's not the actual core competitive advantage, then eventually you'll be proven right and something will come along and unseat it. But being first and having that, like, if not inflating is the actual core value prop of it, the fact that they're first and achieve the most network effects, if that is true, will give it a durable advantage.
But
But go ahead.
no, so I was gonna say, but isn't the finite amount of it literally the reason why it's a good store of value? Isn't that why gold has been an excellent store of value for how many hundreds of years?
So I lean more. I don't think there's value in Bitcoin. You can make the argument that about the government's
There's
not like
totally
when you're
value in Bitcoin today, right now. Like I said, like there are people that actively use it to protect themselves against their corrupt governments. That's some sort of value. And it exists because of the internet. If it wasn't for the internet, you wouldn't be able to protect themselves.
you could use the example of Bitcoin like you're making there, but you could do the same thing for any other crypto.
I get it. But like I go back to my argument. Why hasn't any other crypto, as technology and the internet and accessibility to these things has increased? Like you would think Coinbase and all these different marketplaces where people can migrate to a different crypto would have unseated Bitcoin, but the opposite has happened. It's reached all-time highs. So like how come it hasn't? So as technology and the internet has increased exponentially, Bitcoin has gotten stronger. It has gotten more valuable. So, like, it's actively doing the opposite thing of what you're describing.
I don't know. I think Bitcoin has gotten more popularity.
Mhm.
I don't think it's gotten necessarily stronger. Are there more investors in it? Sure, but you know, that's like
But isn't
saying
popularity part of the strength of this being
as
strong,
far
of
as
the network effect?
after the iPhone came out, a year after, BlackBerry hit their all-time high in sales. Like
Okay.
that's not necessarily a signal. Look at Tesla. You think that autonomy is the future and FSD, electric vehicles and all that, yet well, why haven't the ICE manufacturers been displaced yet? Like that it's like I get what you're saying, but I
Different
don't think it's a
worlds.
good well, they're all different worlds, but I'm giving you examples of what we've seen already and using that as an analogy. But my point is with gold does have utility. It has utility in chips, it has utility in jewelry, it has utility in drilling. Like there's a lot of utility in gold. I don't think just the fact that there's a finite of something that alone makes it valuable. Um, and again, because you could make another crypto. Like Ethereum, in my opinion, in many ways has surpassed Bitcoin already. But Ethereum isn't the big one yet, but it's growing in popularity very quickly. And I'm sure you will see another crypto. When? I don't know. I just think that you will eventually see it. But so going back to it, I think there's several holes. One, there's the fact that one person is or one company is trying to own so much of it. I think that puts risk on it. Two, I think I don't think there's actual value. I saying that value as far as moving it like you're saying, okay, cool. That's like saying LLMs are valuable. LLMs have been commoditized. LLMs are not producing. Is there utility? Sure. Is there value? That's a whole different thing, right? Um, there's utility in LLMs, but it's been so commoditized that the value of them has come down to a least common denominator. And I think that's what will happen with this idea of valuable for moving money or putting it somewhere that the governments can't control it. So, okay, take that out. Where's the value? Like, let's say that
Well, you
problem
just
gets
took
solved.
out such a gigantic variable as to why it's valuable. You can't
But
just
my point is,
yank it
it's
out.
just like
It's
an
like saying
LLM.
yank out the FSD computer from the Tesla car. Well, remove that. What's the value? It's like,
No,
what?
it's
That's the
not.
whole reason.
No. I'm being very consistent here. LLMs have been commoditized. You all of a sudden saw everybody come up with LLMs, and all of a sudden they're like everybody has an LLM. Like it's not that amazing or that
Mhm.
revolutionary. Same with crypto. Like it's the exact same thing. And so that's what I'm saying. FSD computer, you don't have everybody making up their own chips and having the best
It's very different than like the value of any fiat currency or any currency is what people agree that it's valuable in, or the amount that it's valuable in, in relationship to their time or to their goods. But that
not
is a
Bitcoin,
whole, like, you're talking about
not Bitcoin.
mind share. Yeah, no, that is exactly what Bitcoin
No. The
is.
USD is valuable because people want to do business in the United States and they want the protection of the United States.
They and Bitcoin is valuable in the
I will
number of
challenge what Nico just said.
USDs.
Yeah. I think most people trade in the United States dollar because most people trade in the United States dollar. It's because it's the default currency.
And
It
everyone
started
supports it. It's the protocol that is
exactly.
commonly supported.
Exactly. And everyone, like, it may have started as that. Like the United States was the unipolar sort of power in the world. They were the big dog and they controlled the adoption of the US dollar because of how dominant they were, right? The US being as great as it has been is the reason why people have adopted the USD. But now people do business in dollars because people do business in dollars, the
Mm-mm.
USD.
No, because if you don't
Yeah.
do business in US dollars, you will not be able to access the US market. That's why.
Because everyone's in it.
No, not everybody.
Because most people are in it because that's where the profits are. That's where the earnings are. That's where the opportunity is. That's where the
Hence,
entrepreneurship is.
that's the value.
But Bitcoin's the same exact fucking thing.
It's not.
It is. It
It
When was
has
the last
is.
time you did
90%
any
of the
type of
market
business in Bitcoin?
adoption.
What's that?
No, so you're talking about 2 different
Even
things.
Bitcoin's valued in dollars. Like that's the comical thing.
Well, you can value dollars in Bitcoin if you really wanted to, but
Yeah.
you're making a separate argument. What now you're saying is like, well, it's the dollar is bigger than Bitcoin, so of course Bitcoin is going to go to zero. But that you completely switched up your argument.
No, no, no,
Your
no, no,
initial
no, no,
argument
no.
was there's going to be a different crypto that's going
No,
to come in and
don't
displace it.
don't take a joke I made and make that as
You are
my main argument.
totally doing that, bro. You're
I
basically
made a
saying that
joke.
the reason why Bitcoin's useless is because of the dollar.
No,
That
no,
is
no, no,
not
that's not
at all what
why.
you
No,
started
that's
with.
not why. No, I'm saying Bitcoin will eventually go to zero because of I said technology. I said because the whole idea of having this decentralized is kind of a fallacy when you have a company like MicroStrategy trying to own 10% of it. I said that eventually, if the pie can't keep growing, this is a problem. Inflation in our currency, inflation in general in a capitalistic society is a feature. It's not a bug. Too much of it is a problem. Too little of it is a problem. But inflation is a feature. You're growing the pie so that more people can win and more people have a chance at
Yeah.
opportunity to grow.
And it also will fuck you when the Federal Reserve doesn't have good monetary policy.
But
It
again,
will tax brother, like listen to yourself right now. The US dollar, if you're making the argument that the reason why the US dollar works is because the Federal Reserve can dictate the inflation rate of the currency, that is by default why it
that's
sucks. It's
that's
because
not
at
my
any point
argument.
but that's literally what you said. You said
It's not
inflation is a
you can't say
feature,
it's
not a
literally
bug.
what I said when those words verbatim did not come out of my mouth. That's not
You
literally
said
what I said.
inflation is not is a feature, not a bug, which literally
Yes, I
means
never mentioned the Federal
that the
Reserve.
Federal Reserve is a
No,
good thing.
we had
That's what
inflation
you just
before the
said.
Federal Reserve ever existed.
Huh?
We had inflation before the Federal Reserve ever existed.
Yeah, but it was backed by gold. It was backed by a
Inflation was
finite
backed by
asset.
gold.
Huh? You're just
In
losing this argument like crazy, and
how are you
you're
kidding
trying to
me?
like
I'm dominating this argument
yeah,
right now.
right. Your argument is that the US dollar, which is based on the whims of the Federal Reserve setting an arbitrary inflation number or some sort of rate that controls the inflation, and there is a body of people that no one really knows what the fuck they're doing half the time, who they're talking to, who they're being influenced by.
Do you
Those are the
really
people
think
that
the
are
Fed
controlling the
sets the price?
currency. This Fed 1000% sets the price for the dollar based on the rates that they
I can
put out
prove
on
you
the
wrong right
market.
now.
Excuse
We have
me?
not had a single Fed rate cut, rate hike, or anything that was not decided by the bond market. Not one. Not a single one. You could have completely removed the Fed, and every decision they made was completely aligned with what the bond market was saying. Every one of them.
So you think having a fiat currency is going to be better? Like that's the thing that's going to win long term. Like for put aside crypto altogether and Bitcoin, you think
Um,
fiat is the way to go? Because that's at the core of this debate, right? Like when I
no,
think
no,
about
no.
Bitcoin, I want to take power away from this shady process that I don't really fucking understand, to be completely honest, that sets the rules around a currency that actively taxes your purchasing power by just existing. You
I'm
you
not
can't
making.
even, dude, if you keep
Yeah,
dollars in your bank account for long enough, they go to zero.
yeah,
It's crazy. How's that a thing?
yeah. So
It's
I'm not.
insane. The thing that
I want
I'm
to make it clear.
using as my store of like the thing that's denominating my value, if I keep that thing in my bank, it goes to zero over the long term. How's that anything?
Yeah.
That
So,
makes no
right.
sense.
Let me be very clear. I'm not defending fiat.
You
What
literally, I'm just kidding.
about to say, words have meaning, and those meanings matter. And I'll call anyone out when they say I said something I didn't. Um,
Speak your truth, Nico. Go.
it's not. It's facts. There's one set. There's one truth. There's one fact. End of story. And I did not say the words you said. I never even mentioned the
Uh-huh.
Fed until afterwards. But
Sure.
rewind the tape.
You said
Um,
inflation.
yeah, inflation and Fed are two different words.
No, they're not.
Yeah. Full shit.
They're
Um,
directly connected.
so what I'm saying is, I think. Well, I started this all talking about Bitcoin. I'm trying to find a reason why Bitcoin will work in the long term and why my perception of it is wrong. Will fiat be the future over the next decade? I would say yes. What happens after that? I don't know. I think it's blurry. But for right now, in our current state, especially with our debt, you can't do much other than make sure we stay in a fiat world. Like,
Yeah, you just make more of this fake currency.
well, it's not so much about making more of it as much as growing enough where your debt becomes irrelevant, which is unfortunate that that's where we're at. But there's too much of a tension there. I think crypto, the idea, I love the idea and the spirit of Bitcoin and what it is. But when it's a technology eventually gets replaced. Um, I mean, hell, the idea we're talking about crypto versus fiat, that is technology replacing. And technology tends to replace faster and faster and faster, not slower. Um, it can take a long time. FSD is taking a long time. Autonomy is taking a long time. Um, Satellites are taking a long time. I mean, like, I don't know about timescales. And again, Bitcoin could go to $1 million before there's a Facebook or a TikTok that displaces it. But my point in this is I don't think that Bitcoin stands the test of time. I do think that you want to have inflation in an economy so that it can grow. There's a healthy inflation. There really is. I mean, like, I don't even think this is like an an argument in general in any normal talk about capitalism. Like, you want to have a degree of inflation. You want that because it allows more people to win in the long term. Yes, you're right. If you keep your dollars in the bank account, no matter what, no matter if we're backed by gold, no matter if you're backed by any other hard asset, yes, it will devalue over time. Like, it doesn't matter. It will one way or another. Um, Even more
Your
so
argument, that's
now.
the forcing function to go out there and, did we talk about this before?
Well, I
I'm getting deja vu.
no, I don't think we have. You're just starting
Okay.
to see uh uh
That
truth.
was a deja vu moment right there.
But I think look, we're playing the game. This is all a game. It's one big game. If you don't see it as that, then I think you just don't know you're playing a game.
That I agree with
And
you 1,000%.
if you leave money in your bank account, you're choosing not to pass go and collect $200. Your money should never be in a bank account. You want to have enough, in my not financial advice, you want to have enough for a few months of expenses, maybe just so you feel comfortable. But your money should be in Bitcoin, in gold, in stocks, in bonds, in something that's going to outpace inflation. Because inflation is a feature in our capitalism society so that more people can come in and win and grow. It's the way, it's literally the game. And if you don't see that, then you're losing the game.
I
So
hate playing games with people's livelihoods.
I
That's why
That's reality, though.
I know,
There's
but that's
no
but you can hate it
yes.
because
all you want. I hate, I mean, you're turning 40, you probably hate putting a finger up your butt, but you're gonna have to do
38,
that.
38. I'm a few years away from that. Fuck you.
Yeah. But look, but this is the world we live in. We can hate things all we want, like, but
That's such a
this is
bullshit cop out response.
I hate that I can't just eat whatever I want and still look amazing. I have to
The
unfortunately track
answer is
my
not
macros.
be comfortable with the game where your livelihood is going to go to zero if all you do is sit on the effort that you've done. Right?
no, I
That
mean, I kind
that
of
to
think
me,
that is the game because you're not contributing anything. Like,
Yeah,
if you
you're hoarding.
yeah.
well, no, it's you've contributed.
How?
You have contributed, right? So
Yeah, but
it's like all of a sudden society is saying, well, too bad. Like it doesn't even matter. Like that's just zero now. Like you're irrelevant. Goodbye. That's basically what we're saying. And that's the game. And we're saying that should be the game everybody plays. Is
Even
like it
even if
doesn't
you,
matter.
yeah, were a billionaire and you wanted to leave, generations and generations and generations of wealth to your untold future descendants, it'll just go to 0 instead of allowing just continuing to be this resource that is there forever.
How crazy is that? Like how like think about that for a second. Like how crazy is it that by default we've built a monetary policy that just says, "Hey, like you have to constantly produce always, otherwise you with enough
That's the
time
world we live in.
you end
no.
with nothing."
Oh my goodness. No. Wow, that's a interesting point of view. Dude, you've got this from my point of view, you have it twisted. Do you realize how fucking lucky we are? I get to go work hard, get paid for my hard work, take that money, throw it to a company like Tesla, with one of the most brilliant minds out there, have all the top engineers in the world wanting to go work there. They work 24/7. They put out vehicles, they're nonstop. The money I made, I get to put out there, and now those little soldiers out there working for me. And I get to keep doing that until one day, all that continues
But
to
you have
work
to
for
do
me.
that. But you have to do that.
What?
That doesn't like your money doesn't automatically go to that company that you spent hundreds of hours researching, right?
You don't have
You've
to research. You can just go in S&P 500. You don't have to do any. You can be the dumbest person in the world and just put in the S&P 500. You're going to be fine. You're going to average over 10% a year. Last year, you made 24%. This year, you made 23%. Like, are you kidding me? That's insane.
I just
Doing
I
nothing.
understand. I understand the value of investing. I understand the value of putting your hard-earned money into things that are going to grow for you, that will capitalize on the effort that you've made, right? So like you've put an effort, you've collected money, and now you're taking that money, you're putting into something that's going to generate value while you do nothing, right? Because that system's going to generate value on your behalf
But it's
based
because
on
that money is actually providing value to others in the process
And
instead
it's
of,
pulling
yeah,
other
sitting
people
in
out of
a
poverty.
yeah.
It's helping get other people jobs.
yeah.
It's a beautiful system. Like, that's why the economy grows, and that's why more people get lifted out of poverty. That's why China has seen the biggest lift of people out of poverty is because of this cyclical nature. It's honestly the most beautiful thing you could like, it's honestly, like, amazing that this how it works.
It's a
Like,
forcing function. It's a
I
forcing
I
function.
I get what you're saying, that it sucks that your money lose value if it sits in a checking account, and I would say the real criminal thing, the real thing to be objectionable about is that we aren't teaching this game or how this works or the beauty of this earlier. Like, people should be taught this in elementary
Well,
school.
here's a problem. and I can speak about this from experience because I would consider myself in this bucket from years ago, is that it wasn't
Great
clear
stuff.
to me that it was a game,
Oh,
right? I think 80%, 70, at least
sure
50% of
fucking
the
played it well.
population.
So,
Well, I think, but that's I think that's both the problem,
I
and
agree
I
with
will
that.
call it a problem, is that most people don't understand that this is a game and there is rules to play it so that you can win it. And the rules aren't that difficult, but they do exist.
It's like
And the number one rule is to never, ever, ever value your cash. You have to put it to work at all
yes,
times, right? That's not something that we teach. That's not
I
something that's
agree.
common knowledge, right?
But that's
That's
the
the real
problem,
problem.
not
That's
the
the
game, it's
problem.
that. Because the game's actually beautiful.
It
The
shouldn't be a
game
game.
we're calling it a game, right? Because it's just the way things
Games
work
are
and
fun.
call yeah, like,
Doesn't that sit wrong with you though? It doesn't sit wrong
no.
with you that we all live in a game? That the rules are set by other humans and then you have to play by the rules?
Well,
Like,
I mean, it's
doesn't it
like
sit
Nah,
well with you? Huh?
that's actually not the case. Like, what is a startup? A startup is somebody who decided not to play by the rules. They decided to go out and break all the rules, and if they do it right, they get to be the most successful people in the game.
Well, the game of getting more money that will lose
no,
value in your checking
why does it
account
always go
unless you put
back
it
to
to work.
money to you? It's not just about the money. It's about what it represents, what it
I'm
means.
talking on behalf of 80% of the world's population.
I I hear you.
You understand? Like
I hear you.
80% of the people that listen to this will, my guess is they'll hear that this money conversation and like, right? And then
No.
when they think about, you don't think so?
80% of the people who listen to this are gonna be like, "Shut the fuck up, Farzad, we're making
Maybe,
money. Leave us alone."
perhaps. But this is the friction that has existed in this world between the haves and the have-nots, between the people that have money and don't have money, is that the
It's
people that don't have money or they don't have the means to get more money look at the system, right? And a fair number of them are trying to understand why they're not able to move up the ladder or why they feel like things are up against them. And it's inherently because it's a game that we don't teach the rules to.
well,
That's what it all comes down to.
And I think one of the really important rules that is true, but people just don't understand is that it's not that hard to actually, people think the system is set up to keep you down and that it's impossible to win against the system. It's almost like, gambling at the casino and the house always wins kind of a
Yeah.
deal. And that's like that is the opposite of how it works. Like it's not really that hard to be successful if you know that
What questions to ask?
yeah, like the biggest question is how do you provide value to other people? Can you increase that over time? Can you be a good long-term person to provide value to other people? Like, are you extracting things from them? Are you using strategies that only work in the short term? Or do people who know how to win in business like doing business with you and want to continue to do business with you over the long term? Like being high integrity and always trying to make sure that the person that you're working with comes out on the winning end of a deal with you, like those 2 things will take you so, so, so far. And, if you do that with somebody and they come out on the winning end of a deal with you and you feel like you got the shaft instead of you also won, well, then just don't do business with them next time. Find somebody
Yeah.
else. But eventually you'll find someone who, like, you can both win at the same time and then just turn that into a flywheel and let it go. And like that's those are the I think those are the rules that most people don't understand that make this a lot more fun and a lot more accessible and a lot more um winnable.
Yeah. I think
Like
so what you
almost any
just said in the
starting point.
last, yeah, what you just said in the last 2 minutes is better than any course out there.
Yeah,
You should almost package that in a course and sell it.
do it. Except don't sell it, right?
Yeah, no, because
Yeah,
it's the game sucks. No, I listen, I totally get where you guys are coming from. Like, listen, I think yeah, I wish I I think there is a way to get closer to the ground truth of existence. I think this is where my, like, this is why I feel frustrated by the whole thing, is because as somebody who is winning the game, and I'm very thankful that I'm winning the game, it's still the game, you know? And, like, to me, it's like, okay, like, does it have to be a game? Like, can it be something that's much closely aligned to, like, it's not a game, but it's purpose. It's the reason for existence. Is this just really a thing where humans like to play games by default, and so we've made, like, being part of a capitalistic society to have to play a game so that we can win in that game? Is that really the best version of what it means to exchange value and create value and everything? Like, is it all tied to a game? We got cookies.
take that,
Okay.
Cindy. Sorry. Um, Part of thought one, I think Han's about to hand you a Bible. Um, uh, no, but seriously, on a serious note, and I know you gotta go probably 12 minutes ago, but that
I didn't realize
just
what time it was. Yeah,
yeah, sorry. One
that's
last
okay.
little rant here. I hear what you're saying, but there's also personal ownership that I think gets lost here. Look, I would maybe be more empathetic to what you're saying in the 70s, in the 80s, 90s, when information was harder to come by. Today, there's not a single thing you want to know about investing your money that you could not find on YouTube. I mean, for heaven's sake, I mean, to Han's point, Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger have been putting out their note nonstop. They've been so clear about it, about just go invest in value. That's all you got to do. That's it. Nothing else. And you will win this game. But here's the truth. People suck at being disciplined. It's it's probably the hardest thing that people struggle at is being disciplined. Look, I can take a whole different domain. Fitness. It's a game. It's a very simple game. Consume less calories than what you or consume less calories than what you burn. That's it. And you will shed fat like you've never seen. It's not hard. Meat, vegetables, fruits, like that's all. Just do that. Very simple. You will be amazing. Go to the gym 3 to 4 times a week. Easy. Easy, easy, easy. That's it. Those are rules. Very clear, very succinct. You will be in the best shape you've ever been in. But guess what? People suck at it. People are inherently lazy. I know that's a hard thing to hear, but it's true. People aren't great with discipline. It's true. People also are very bad at delayed gratification. And that's probably the biggest thing. People
Yeah,
don't know how to say no to this because I have this bigger goal. And it takes listen, maybe it's parents showing you that, and maybe I mean that it can go down. Like there's just so many variables that go into it. But at the end of the day, if you're not lazy, if you can be disciplined, if you can delay gratification, everything is possible. And if you can have the curiosity to go seek the knowledge, it's all out there, especially today. Now, in my opinion, there's a huge education problem that starts young. But even you just got done saying that you felt like you didn't realize how this game worked. And again, we're talking about finance. I just made it about fitness. Like you can pick your domain. Everything's a game. And if you gamify things, the reason you make it into a game is because then it becomes more fun and it's less of a chore, right? You have goals, you have little dopamine hits, like it keeps you on track and it helps discipline. But I think to me, one of the things that I see in that, I don't speak too much about this vocally because I don't know, maybe it's controversial, but I think one of the worst things that we do is actually tell people to just put your money in this S&P 500 and forget about it. Just sit there, lose the password to your brokerage account and forget about it. I think that's one of the worst advices you can get because what happens is 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road, you go and guess what? You've learned nothing. You know the same amount then than you did back when you were 20 or whatever. And I believe that people should be financially active. I think people should be active with their money, active with their investments, so they learn along the ways. Will they lose money? Yes, you will lose money, but you're gonna learn and you're gonna be thirsty to learn. Are you gonna make money? Yes, you will also make money. But if you're not learning about how money works, about how to be efficient with your money, about capital allocation, I think you're choosing not to. You're choosing not to have that curiosity. And I think that's a big detriment. There's so many people, like when I hear people talk about the 4% rule, it irks me because they could be retiring so much sooner and living these decades of their life, not just on the 4% rule. Like there's so many better ways to be capital efficient, but people don't want to learn or they don't care. They're like, you know what? I'll do 4%. I don't mind sacrificing. I don't care. I don't have the big dreams to go and constantly travel. If my kids visit me, maybe I do a vacation once every 2 years. Like, that's all I need. I'm good. But we don't all have that drive to have these bigger things. And so you got a temperament with that as well. Like, there's two sides to the coin. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just how I feel. And you clearly are a perfect example of you can learn the game later on and look at you. You're freaking killing it.
I mean, I think I don't disagree with everything you just said. Truly, I think ultimately, like following those principles is what has allowed me personally, if I speak about my experience, to again be winning at this game for a while now. Really, ever since I exited college and I started really understanding how value creation is directly correlated to how much money you earn, right? Like that for some reason that is like doesn't that connection doesn't exist for I don't know, it didn't exist for me before and it doesn't exist for a lot of people, I would argue. Like there's no clear cut connection there, right? Like what Hans just described earlier. But again, I think that the thing that ultimately has me like, there's a part of me that's still like, "Okay, I get what the rules are. I get it. Like, I totally get it." Part of me still says, "Okay, but this system is created for" I don't know, it's created by humans. It's created by humans, and
But
we all gotta play it.
But then use my same example with fitness.
Yeah, but
Like,
you're gamifying something that's a lot more it's like more life or death. Right? It has more about like how much time you have left on this earth. It directly impacts it's just I don't know, maybe it's because of where I am in my current journey in life. Like I'm trying to find the meaning of everything. I'm trying to get to the core of all the like the look at Hans giving me a nice little smirk. You need Jesus, brother. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No. I do think there is a I don't know. I'm just really trying to understand the core of why everything is the way that it is. Like why and the thing that's really driving me to think this way again, which we've been on for a while now, is how the economy and how our lives are going to change so profoundly because of artificial intelligence and everything, right? I think I've just been in this loop in my brain that's constantly trying to understand what the fuck's gonna happen to all of this. Like, and the only way to understand what the fuck's gonna happen to all of it is to truly understand at the root level why money is money, why people work, why people exchange value, right? Why do people start businesses? Like these are the questions I've been asking myself. And so like when you talk crypto, like this is where we started, right? To me, like Bitcoin specifically seems better aligned to the core principles of for those answers than the United States dollar,
crypto
right?
to me is communism. It's got a
Wow.
beautiful message, beautiful ideals, but in practice, it doesn't work.
Okay. It's a fascinating discussion, regardless.
I think, it is a very existential discussion, especially because, we are potentially moving into a world that's essentially no
Post scarcity.
scarcity other than scarcity that we specifically want for some reason. Because that scarcity thing is the forcing function for all of human history. Like, why do people work? Why is there money? There's money just so that we can facilitate working together in larger groups. Like, that's why there's money. And what are
Trade.
we working towards? Well, we're working towards not dying. Like, if all the humans on Earth just go on strike tomorrow and never come back from strike, then within what, a month, 2 months, 3 months, we're all dead. Like, if there's not humans doing work, then all of, like all the things that we rely on to survive go away. And so there has to be, you can't get away from currently a system where people are required to do work, because if everyone stops working, then we all die. Now, once you replace that reality with one that says, okay, now the robots are going to just do all the work and humans are not going to necessarily be needed to provide for our subsistence needs, well then, yeah, I don't know what that world looks like. It's going to be crazy. Um,
Do
but
you think that's how it plays out? You really do?
I don't know. I don't personally. I'm not sure that it does either. I think that humans will still be involved in the process of directing, like, what are the things that, like, we're just going to probably set new goals. Like, it takes a lot of wealth to go become a multi-planetary, multi-solar system, spacefaring species. And so I think we're gonna generate a whole bunch of wealth so that we can go do all that. And that humans are gonna be, an integral part of the decision making layer of what all it is we're gonna go do and how we're gonna do all that work. More than likely, but you know, I, I also don't understand how AI is going to change. Like, if we get to a point where artificial general intelligence and artificial super intelligence can accomplish goals better than we can, then I don't know how involved we're going to have to be with those decision making processes. It's really, really mind melting. Like, it is
Yeah,
the event horizon that I can't see past. I don't know
Farza,
what
do you
that.
have to drop? I wanna be
I have to go.
respectful of you.
Yeah, I do have to
You
go.
do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, but I wanted to say one more thing. The and then I'll give it to you for one last word. The whole concept of like we will only make things scarce that we decide to make scarce, right? So like where one lives in the physical world by default is going to be finite. So it's like how do we come up, like what's the thing? What's the thing that we're going to use that's going to dictate who lives where? Right now we're using money. We're using how much value you bring to the world dictates your purchasing power, right? But if we're able to make almost infinite everything, so how, like, is this still gonna be money? Is it gonna be the legacy people that have been able to hoard that currency are gonna be the ones that are gonna live in, you know, Malibu post fire with better fire stuff, you know? That's where like I'm with Hans. I have like what I'm tr- I hope we can like find somebody that we can talk to for like 3 4 hours to like I don't think this discussion has happened yet. Like, can we go fast forward 20 years and try to figure out what the world looks like in detail? These are very important questions. You know, like in the age of post scarcity and artificial intelligence and robots, we're not talking about this. Like, what does the world look like for real when you have robots making everything and AI making everything? Who wins? Who loses? If this is a game, who wins? Who loses? If you have a game, by default, people win, people lose. Who wins?
That's
Who
not true.
loses? What are the rules?
Yeah, that's not
What do you
true.
mean?
That's only true of a finite game. That is not true of an infinite game.
Fair enough.
Exactly.
Fair enough. Okay. Are we sure this is going to be an infinite game?
So,
Right?
I sure hope so.
Are these systems going to be hoarded? Are they going to be like if I think about the humanoid robot thing that we're going down the path on right now, right? Who are the good companies that are going to be able to uh benefit from humanoid robots first? They're the ones with the most money. They're the ones with the most capital. They're the ones that can hoard all those systems, right? They will have an outside ability to leverage that technology first. And in theory,
And if
over
you're
time,
someone who's out there who wants to win at the game, you can invest in those companies today before they
yes,
do all that,
that's
and
why
you
we're
can win
investors
with
in
them.
Tesla. Exactly. That's why we're investors in. That's the beauty behind public markets. Anyway,
Not financial
I
advice. Do
yeah, no
your own
financial
research.
advice.
Blah,
But go
blah.
ahead,
so
Nico, before I drop off.
yeah, so I do think it's an infinite game if for no other reason. I mean, we know space is expanding. Like, whether we're
Sure.
part of that game or not, who knows? But we do know that space keeps expanding. And, quantum computing, I mean, if you've ever looked into this, like, it's kind of fascinating. There actually might be alternate universes. Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of it's
Quantum entanglement, the reason it
yes,
exists
it's
is it means that there's alternate something.
yeah, or there's
Yeah.
or, uh, it could be the sign that there's God or that there's something. I mean, there's something else. Like this all didn't just happen, right? Like
Yeah.
there's something. But I don't see. I just don't think we get into this world of just super like all of a sudden everything is solved because if that's the case, okay, well then we'll be populating Mars in no time. If we can populate Mars because we have this super intelligence, okay, well then we can find a way to go hypersonic with the speed of light and persist the human body or persist the robots, and we can build that. Okay, now we can travel across galaxies. Okay, well then if we can do that, then I mean you could go on and on. It's like all right, well then we've solved everything. So now nothing's a challenge. Everything's solvable. Which I don't see a world being like that because then my question is, all right, well what's the evolution from the super intelligence? Like, what's the next iteration from that?
I know.
What's beyond that? I don't know.
I know.
What's
I
beyond
know.
the robot form factor? That
I know. Why do you think
it's
I'm
I don't
having
know.
an existential crisis right now?
Yeah, I don't think that's how things play out. I think things play out where new industries get built upon humanoids and super intelligence that we can't understand or fathom or come up with ideas yet. It's like being in the 70s and even coming up with the idea of the internet is like ridiculous. Like, coming up with the idea of Spotify back then was like, "What? Like, what? What are
I
you
don't
even
know, man.
talking about?"
The more I use, like, I've been using a lot of AI agents and robots and all this shit lately to like for our a lot of the stuff we're working on in the back end. And the more I use them, the more I'm like, this is like you're gonna have a question, it's gonna get answered. You're gonna have a thing you want to do, it's gonna get done. It's so like we're just gonna be limited by how many prompts we can write. That's it. And maybe that's our
Yeah.
future. It's like you just exist to write prompts. Oh, I wonder if I had this thing. Okay, here you go. Oh, I wonder if you could build this thing for me. Okay, here you go. Oh, I wonder if you could, like that's what it is. It's just instant gratification for everything that you've ever wanted. Instant
Yeah.
gratification
It's
for things that I mean,
I don't
that's
think that's I hear you. I just don't think that's how it evolves. I know we want it to be like that. I think it evolves where we get very competent, robotics, but I think there's something very unique about humans that separate us that you won't be able to replicate in humanoids or robots. And you call
yeah,
that
we're
a
we're
soul,
we're thirsty
intuition,
for dopamine.
call it that, yeah. I mean, it's the we will never the human condition is to constantly create and build and work. It's we're a cockroach in that sense, that we constantly we can't sit still. Look at you. You freaking retired and you couldn't even sit still, and here you are making a multi whatever production company, and, like, people
Yeah,
suck
but
at retirement. Like,
have you
humans
heard me
don't
for the
wanna
last
retire.
2 years? Well, that's true. Yeah, because I'm having an
Y
existential crisis.
yeah.
Trying to
Yeah, it's
figure
because you
out
don't have enough work.
that's probably what it might be. Yeah,
You
I
wanna
actually I
work.
think I think I'm working too much on the thing that's about to transform the world that I'm freaking out about how it's gonna transform it
Your
more than
son?
anything. No, like the business specifically. I mean, so like my
No.
son is the thing that keeps me
Oh,
like that's the
giving
crazy
him
thing, right?
yeah.
It's the thing that actually keeps me grounded. Like if I didn't have my son and my wife and my family to like actually, bring like the whole, hey, like, but you sharing the moments with them is really what's important, right? But like
Yeah.
it's also very difficult to ignore the building side of what I want to do. Like my own purpose, my own thing. And if I extrapolate this out to the masses, like the individuals, like humans in general, right? Like I feel like an existential crisis when it comes to understanding what your purpose is in the world if you are a builder by design, right? I think that's going to be challenged like very, very, very violently. And in a world where men are typically the builders, right? That this is not to discredit what women do in society, which is equally as important, if not more so, because
You
they
misogynist.
nurture the next generation of humans in a lot of respects, right? I think I think I think men are gonna have a really difficult time in the next 10 to 20 years.